Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us for our next LinkedIn Live. My name is Justina Brownbridge, and I am the Chief of Growth for Tribal Impact. And I have absolute pleasure to have with me today Elena Ivanova, and we will be discussing what it takes to activate employees on social media. Elena, thank you very much for joining us for your first ever LinkedIn Live.
Oh, I'm so excited. We are live, everybody. So if you hear the dog barking, if my son pops out of his room, just don't be alarmed. It's all good. So we're rolling with it.
You'll be part of the experience. So please join
Exactly.
us in comments if you would like to join, if you would like to ask any questions, have any comments. This is the beauty of being live. Yes, the dogs might pop up on the screen, but you can also join the conversation and be
Exactly.
part of it.
Exactly. It's all about community, right? We're going to touch on that during our conversation a little bit too. So I always love to have these interactive sort of conversations where people can pop in, ask questions too. I'm happy to answer them. Connect with me as well offline. Happy to set up some coffee chats and learn a little bit more and kind of just brainstorm some ideas together. Always open to learning from folks and sharing what I know in this space.
Fantastic. And that's really how we met, right? We met here on LinkedIn and we had a great chat online. And we've decided that this would be a perfect, actually, opportunity to share your knowledge with our wider audience and discuss this subject. But before we do that, Elena, for those of you who don't know you, could you give us a bit of introduction of who you are and what's your experience?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have been in the social media space, communications for the past 15 years. I actually started my career in market research, so I was more on the data side and essentially in the veterinary health space. So I was working for a small company that was tracking veterinary medicines and working with pharmaceutical clients to deliver that data on what's performing, what's not performing, kind of month over month and quarter over quarter, year over year. And so my career is very much rooted in data and research, but it has been an incredibly foundational kind of experience that has set me up for some of the success throughout my career. So I moved to Boston in 2011, end of 2011, and I came out here to pursue my MBA at Boston University. And during that time, I also started working for a company in the data technology space called InterSystems. And so I had been with that company for about 10 years, kind of working in various departments within marketing. And so one day, the VP of marketing pulled me in his office and essentially offered me the opportunity to build the company's first social media function, which did not exist. And initially, this was supposed to be just another skill that I add in my toolbox as a marketer. But I ended up loving it and learned so much throughout the process because I was so kind of in the nitty gritty, in the day to day grind, that I sort of had to learn absolutely every single thing within social and have sort of flowed with the ebbs and flows of how it works, the rising and the decline of certain platforms. And so it just became something that really has stuck with me, has kept me interested, has kept me going and learning and just being involved. And so that's kind of how I ended up in this space. And I've loved it ever since. For a long time, I was a one woman band, doing everything from creating my own Canva graphics to strategy and writing policy and XYZ.
Wow.
And so it's been a long and fascinating journey, but it's kept me on my toes. It's kept me interested, and I've loved every single minute of it.
Amazing. Gosh, this is a lot to handle for one person.
Yes, we recognize it now, but back in those days, especially in B2B, and I think it sometimes is still happening in B2B, is that um, we have to do as social media professionals, we do have to educate quite a bit and sort of advocate for what is needed to ensure that we're successful in our day to day.
And quite a lot of people agree that this is going to be a great session. We've got two comments. I know this is going to be so good. Go, Elena. I hope I'll say your name right. Arima is
Arima.
this Arima. There's Arima, and
Oh,
we've also got Carla on the call saying, Elena, you are a force of nature.
oh, I
Love
love you
this.
guys. I love you guys so much. I miss them. They're amazing, amazing humans. Thank you guys for joining and supporting me. It means a ton.
Thank you. Thank you for joining. So you mentioned as well, Elena, that I think it was this company as well that you had this little challenge of also figuring out how to activate employees on social media. I guess it came a point. I would love to learn a bit more of where was that realization that actually it's the employees that are, let's call it the force of nature that helps us build the brand trust and brand exposure.
Yeah, I think that um, that is a long realization in the making, especially because for a long time, company pages took center stage, right? Especially in B2B, especially on LinkedIn. Company pages were the place where you shared, you essentially broadcasted more so
Hmm.
announcements, anything that was happening in the company. It was a lot of chest beating, right? Like we're so great, we're launching products, we're doing XYZ. And that's started to shift quite a bit over the past couple of years. We've seen this with just the way that company pages perform and the visibility. And there are so many factors that play into this, right? We have the rise of the creator economy. So everyone is participating in social media conversations. We have the rise of TikTok. So that's kind of been the platform of choice, especially for younger generations. And so you have this constant creation of content that you're competing with as an organization, especially in B2B, where you're not just selling shoes, where you're not selling skincare, you're not selling tangible consumer products, right? You're in a lot of cases, you're selling this complicated technology that requires a translation layer between what you're saying to the what you're trying to say as an organization and how it's landing with your audience. And so that has to happen because it's not very clear cut. So a lot of what we're doing is constantly trying to translate these complex topics and make them more approachable for a wider audience. And but at the same time, we're competing with the fun TikTokification that's happening across all these platforms. And there's new creators that are popping up, even on LinkedIn. If you've noticed, there's just so many more people creating content these days, which is exciting. And it's created their own, its own kind of opportunity for folks. Um, but I had the realization that employees really would be the catalyst to building a really great brand and great brand trust over the years because I've built three separate employee advocacy programs and I've seen firsthand the impact that that has. I've seen it in a positive light, right? Like I've seen how great company culture inspires really great advocacy. And then I've seen the opposite of that happen where the internal story and the external story don't quite match up. And so you see a decline in employee advocacy. And no matter what you do, no matter what sort of technology you put in place, or no matter what you offer as a reward for participation, it just doesn't work because there are underlying issues that are beyond social that are just out of your control.
And this is such an interesting subject. Thank you for pointing this out because really there's a you actually said that yourself in one of our previous conversations. There is a certain level of company readiness before an employee advocacy program can be launched and be successful. I just would love to hear your thoughts on this. Like, what do you think that is?
Absolutely. I mean, um, I think that there's two parts to that, right? So the organizational readiness, you really have to make sure that the organization is set up in a way that recognizes that social media is a priority, right? And we see this more so lack of understanding and lack of kind of buy-in in the B2B space than in the B2C space, right? That still exists. And for a long time, especially in technology organizations, social media did not have a seat at the table. It was tucked behind a different department. it was often minimized. It was something that was so far removed from the way that leadership perceived what would be priority in terms of marketing. That's changing, right? Naturally, with a lot of the AI companies, also these younger kind of startup, fast moving, high growth organizations kind of coming up. But we still see it a lot in the older kind of legacy brands that it's one of those things that you tend to shy away from, especially leaders that are not necessarily as familiar with it, that didn't necessarily come up through the ranks as in their leadership positions, knowing how it works, right? And that's not a dig on leadership at all. This is just a fact, right? So by the time someone becomes a CMO, if they have not been exposed or they have not learned about how social works, if they weren't part of, if social was not part of their world and their kind of early formative years in their careers in marketing, by the time they get to VP CMO level, they're so high up in the organizational chart that they simply just cannot be involved in the day to day and really learn the ins and outs of it. And so it's impossible for us to also expect for that to be a reality, right? That disconnection will exist, but that's slowly changing, and I think that there's a lot of opportunity for us in social media leadership to educate. When we do have a seat at the table, to educate senior leadership and really advocate for what's needed to make sure that we are successful in our efforts, and advocate for what our team needs in order to clear up any sort of roadblocks that exist and get them the resources that they need to do their best work. So that exists, right? And then there's also the organizational readiness from like an architecture foundation standpoint, right? You need to have the right tools in place. You need to have training in place as well. So one thing that we tried at the last company that I was with, that I have some people on the call here supporting me, is we implemented, not only as we were transitioning from Hootsuite to Sprout Social. Where is everyone who loves Sprout Social? I just love that tool so much. So this is not sponsored by Sprout, by the way.
It is not,
But,
but they will be happy to see this.
but they will be happy to see it. We ended up switching everything over, and including our employee advocacy tool, and
To
that
Sprout Social.
to Sprout, exactly. So like
Okay.
daily management, the reporting, the social listening, the employee advocacy piece, everything. And that meant moving over about 600 employee advocates, which
Hmm.
what we were afraid would happen was, as we're migrating folks off the old platform and into the new platform, we would lose some of that momentum. So we needed to make sure that we had a program in place and a strategy in place to make sure that that didn't happen, right? And if anything, kind of set up the program to scale even further. And so one of the things that we did in order to do that is we thought through, obviously, the rewards piece. I think every organization that has an employee advocacy program definitely should have some sort of rewards or recognition program in place as well. But the one thing that I think really has had a lot of positive impact and feedback has been the training that we've offered alongside the employee advocacy program. So, as we know, as everyone on this call and everyone who's in corporate America and around the world knows, um, these are uncertain times, and we read the headlines. Unfortunately, layoffs happen, and they're happening quite consistently, week to week, which is hard to watch. It's hard to experience. It's hard to be a part of. But one thing that we all need to recognize is that building your own personal brand is not a nice to have, right? You have to really invest the time in yourself and ensure that you're future proofed for the new world that we're living in, right? So, ensuring that your personal brand says what you want it to say about you. And if that's missing, then recognize that that also says something about you as well. So no one's saying become an influencer. No one's saying, create a following of 100,000 to 1 million people. That's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about ensuring that you show up on social in a meaningful way that's true to who you are and who you are authentically as a person, as a professional. And we're not asking you to manufacture anything or a persona. We're saying use the strengths that you have, the person you are, draw a bridge between who you are as a professional to who you are as a person, and show up meaningfully online. And so I think that's my sort of long-winded answer to say it's important to make sure that you have that in place just because of the world that we live in now. And if your organization does not have a formal employee advocacy program, if there aren't trainings that are there to support you, a strategy to support you, ask for it. Because I think at some point, what I see happening is that programs like these are going to become part of a benefits package, because it really is something that is almost a requirement now. Just keeping my finger on the pulse here and trying to stay current with what's happening and how the world around us is working, is that you really should be more proactive and kind of take the reins. And there is no time like the present. So
There's so many things you mentioned in here that are just gold,
let's
absolute gold.
unravel. Let's unravel.
Okay, let's just summarize a little bit. Let's take a moment to just acknowledge all of this, because we talked about readiness and you were saying about so many different layers that that readiness has. Yes, so number one, leadership buy-in. Yes, your leaders understanding the value of why that is, what's the role, how does it play a role in the whole operational model rather than as a marketing tool, right? There's so many different ways how social media impacts, and the feedback you get from your customers, the research, the insights that now I'm adding to this, sorry, about the products, the audience,
Yes.
the trends, what's happening, the conversations that are happening, the feedback that you get internally and externally. That is, successful organizations understand that social media is not just one department. It impacts every part of the business. They know how that you can gain from it, and that leadership buy-in then is crucial for the readiness.
Yes, 100%. I mean, and a lot of what I've experienced is that you really do have to be your own cheerleader in some ways. And I know that a lot of us are not comfortable with that, right? Like, um, there's a degree of I have to be visible and I have to be vulnerable at the same time, right? You have to take the opportunities that you have to share your team's progress and successes with your colleagues, your peers, with the leadership team, whenever you do have the opportunity to, just so you can showcase the extent, the breadth of everything that's happening within your department. And that's half the battle in terms of getting buy-in, right? When you actually do come to the table and you ask for resources, then you sort of have built up this drumbeat of here are some of the successes that we've seen along the way, some of the results. So that way, when you do come to the table and ask for more resources in order to scale something, then you have some of those conversations that have happened already, and it makes the job a little bit easier to advocate for what is needed. And that's, I would say that that's one of your most important jobs as a leader too, for those of us that are in social leadership, is that advocating for what your team needs and the resources and clearing up any sort of obstacles that are in the way. That's a lot of what we do day in and day out. So yeah,
Love this.
a
Love
lot
this.
there.
A lot, because you've also mentioned infrastructure and all of the tools and the solutions, the enablement, right? Like we so much into that space. That's what we do. It's the enablement, it's the training, it's the follow up, it's the coaching, it's the materials that people can access at any point, not just at the time when it's a live session. All
Exactly.
of that is important. Yes, that tool is not the program. We've had Chris Kim from Palo Alto Networks saying that last week. Tool is not a program. Tool is one part of the puzzle. There's so much more that needs to be part of it to build a strong program.
Right.
And then the final thing you said was the individual, I put it here, individual's readiness, which is a lot about also mindset. And that's something I think I would just add from my own experience that mindset can be cultivated, yes, by providing examples, by again enablement, by leadership also serving as examples to follow. We've run a study, we published the results last year where we looked at the most successful companies and how their leaders, what was their leaders' presence online, and how we saw a very strong correlation between how what impact that had on the percentage of employees being active, and vice versa. When the leaders' activity has gone down, it was exactly the same impact, negative impact on employees' presence.
Yeah, absolutely. I've worked very closely with executive leaders on kind of how they show up on social as well. So we formalized an executive social program at uh, all the all the organizations that I worked at, and kind of helped to bring that to life. Um, I think that or executives, they're just like us, right? I mean, they're people at the end of the day, and they have the same sort of fears and anxiety over how they show up online as everyone else, right? But for them, the risk is even greater because they are so visible at an organization that everything could be taken the wrong way. What they say could be scrutinized, not just within the organization, but also externally with customers, partners, just the broader audience. And so I think that that's what inhibits a lot of the executives from showing up in a meaningful way on social, is just that anxiety and like that risk mitigation piece. I know that they always say, I don't have time for this. I'm too busy. I think that certainly is a reality. And I think that that's definitely something that we do have to be mindful of, is that, those that are at the C-suite do have less time than most of us to spend on these efforts. However, if you can cultivate a meaningful relationship with the executives that you're working with and their executive communications, if they have one, professional that's kind of helping to guide them, I think that it opens up the room and the door for something magical, quite honestly. And we've seen that with some of the executives that we've worked with in the past, is that if they are open to being coached, to kind of doing things a little bit differently, if you establish that level of trust with them, right? If they can hand over the keys to their LinkedIn profile, for example, and kind of give you a little bit more freedom to make suggestions, get creative, and test out some things, while also making sure that you are staying true to who they are and they understand that you're not just trying to manufacture this false persona of them. And they understand that you're just helping to bridge the two worlds between their personal and professional kind of experience. I think that it creates for really, really solid executive social and executive communications programs that at the end of the day really elevate the executive leader's profile, as well as the company as a whole. And we've seen some success with that I can share with the audience, but I think, for the sake of time, maybe maybe if anyone's interested, ping me, let me know. Happy to share anytime.
That actually leads very nicely to my next question, because what I also found fascinating is, like, in your previous role, you were in charge of social media, but you were also in charge of paid marketing. And I know that you combine both. Like, we talked about this one example of you sponsoring executive posts in front of the kind of audience that was part of the event that you were running, and for very little budget, you actually generated a lot of exposure in front of the right audience. I'm just curious, like your paid marketing experience, is that paid social or paid, including search engines as well?
This is in particular for paid social.
Okay.
That example
Okay.
that I shared with you. Um, I We could spend so much time on this topic, honestly. It's something that I am really passionate about is like how do you marry the two? Because I
Yes.
think that when we look at organic social, it is such a great place to test what lands, what doesn't land, how it lands, essentially how it resonates with your audience, right? Um, and then it's a really great place to experiment and kind of get that real time feedback from your audience, pressure test messaging, no matter what it is for, right? Like it could be for an event, upcoming event, speaking opportunity. It could be for an upcoming launch and testing out some messages there before you kind of do a big reveal. It's such a great place to do that, and to really kind of own that experimentation and pressure testing side of things, and really see what your audience engages with. And then when you pour a little bit of budget, it's like pouring gasoline on fire, right? You don't want to put money towards something that's not working. Like stop trying to make fetch happen, right? So you don't want to put money towards something that's not working. You want to make sure that whatever you're doing from an organic standpoint, you complement that with a little bit of paid in order to reach some of those audiences that this will resonate with, because some of those audiences are already kind of following your page, and you just need the opportunity to reach a broader set of eyeballs. And I think that from our experience, especially with the example that I shared with you, that was one of those tests that we did. We did the new format, not so new anymore, from LinkedIn. I think they came out with it about a year ago, with influencer ads. And so we
Hmm.
positioned one of our executives right before a major industry event. Um, he wrote a really nice article about agentic AI. It was very timely, and it performed extremely well on organic. So we saw that people were engaging with it. There was a lot of comments. The reach, I mean, before we even considered putting budget behind it, he had already reached an audience of like 50,000. And so it was already kind of one of those viral pieces, almost LinkedIn viral pieces, that we took as an opportunity and said, let's just put a little bit of budget behind it. I think we put like $500 or something behind that post. And within a week, I mean, it just blew up. And he ended up getting, I think like close to 500 followers after the whole campaign had ended, new followers from that, just through this discoverability, right? You're not buying followers, you're not buying impressions, you're taking something that's already landing and resonating and you're delivering it to more people, and you're essentially increasing your earned audience. So that was sort of the approach that we took, that we found a lot of success with. But it doesn't work with any content. I want to make that very clear, because you can't just take any content, right? There has to be a strategy for it. Like this example worked because it was right before a major conference. It was a very buzzy topic that was, taking center stage across socials, across the industry. Everyone was talking about agentic AI. What's happening in agentic AI? Agents this and agents that. And so we took a topic that was very timely and relevant, and that's kind of how we wrapped this up, especially tying it to a major industry event. So I think you really have to get intentional with how you position the content, the format of the content, and then timing as well. Is like, how can you tie it to these like happenings in the industry, events, or what's happening in the media, or what's in the news. So, right.
And what's really great about this example is how cross-functional collaboration, that also how that showcases also cross-functional collaboration, because there was a content that was created based on the insights that I guess somebody else gathered on what's happening right now. Yes, agentic AI, this is the subject that a lot of audience are searching for, reading for, interested in. There is the social media, the organic sides, there is the paid side, and there is probably, I wouldn't be surprised if at some point, if not already, this post is already appearing in Perplexity Gemini as the post for people to also learn more from. I
Right.
think that this is fascinating. I know that you're really passionate about that cross-functional collaboration. Like, I think that we live in the times where marketing, there's never been stronger need for our marketing efforts to be more aligned. And I just find this fascinating, that change, that if companies that focus on this, I think we'll see much greater results than simply deciding, oh, this is the channel, this is the area. No, how can we combine everything that we do into a system that works across different channels, across different areas, and work together?
Yeah, and that's so funny that you mentioned that, because I think that that's 100% a piece of it. And I think it's also ensuring that those that are creating the content are looping in the social media team well in advance, right? Don't just create a piece of content and say, here, promote this on social, which is what we see a lot, right?
Yeah.
I created this white paper, I created this blog post, just help me promote it on social. And that is the opposite of what you want to happen. You want to loop in your social media team before any content gets created, or if it's already created, figure out a way to make it social first. So the example that I shared about this particular article, it was supposed to be a blog post on the website. And in the last minute, interesting turn of events, one of our colleagues looped me into an email thread that, I had no idea this blog post was going live, right? And I said, hold the line. So we need to figure out what the best way is to make sure that this content sees the light of day. And we ended up shifting from putting it out on our blog, on our website, where it would probably see very little light of day, to leveraging LinkedIn entirely for the entire promotion. And then we had the follow-up conversation cross-functionally, right? To your point about how can we now leverage, given that we've tested this on social, we've put some paid behind it, we've seen how well it performs and how it's landing. What could we do with this piece of content to sort of make it serialized, or do something else with it, or put it on our thought leadership hub or something, so we can extend the life of it? So I think that that's sort of the importance of looping your social media team in early, because a lot of the times what we're used to doing as marketers, putting things on the website or putting them here or there, people may never even get there. Like, your audience may never get to your website. Chances are they'll see it on social, because they're those that you want to see it will see it on social, on LinkedIn, through their connections. Your chances really are better there, and your efforts are better spent there.
This is gold again, especially now,
Right now, I know.
with all of the data coming out saying that majority of the websites lost 60% of their search traffic in the last 12, 24 months, including HubSpot. HubSpot, the company that invented the terminology inbound marketing, lost
Right.
60% of their traffic. And if you love the concept that the term that you mentioned, social first content, if you still focusing on creating content for the website, your chances of that content being visible are
I know.
so much smaller than they were a year or 2 years before, and it will only continue
Yes.
to go down.
Yes.
So that approach, I love that approach, social first content, but also like even starting, like even the point about creating the content, like the starting point, how do you even decide which content to create? Where do you get the know-how about the audience? Like what is it that they would like to read? What is it that they're interested in? What are the things that are happening right now that we could tap into? That all is begging for cross collaboration across all of the different departments, within marketing at least, and then we're talking beyond. Then we can look beyond marketing, sales, customer service, product. Yes, now I'm asking for a lot. Okay,
No,
let's start with
no,
marketing.
but it's, are you surprised though at that stat, the 60%?
No.
Are you surprised? Because I feel like I can't even remember the last time I went to a company's website. The first place that I look where I want to learn something about a company is on LinkedIn or other social channels. I don't want to give a plug for LinkedIn, but we are unplugged on LinkedIn Live, right? So, but and maybe it's because that's who I am as a professional, right? Like I have to be plugged in, I have to be online, I have to keep my finger on the pulse of these things. But that's the first place I go to. I want to know what you're posting about. I want to know what your latest announcements are. I want to see the people that work for your company. I want to see how your leadership shows up. And I think that that's becoming, it's all about kind of peeling the curtain back a little bit and just saying, well, humans work for these companies. We are, at the end of the day, no matter if we're selling a pair of shoes or we're selling, SaaS, um, at the end of the day, you're selling to a human. So I want to see that who I'm doing business with is a real human being, and also kind of has a voice and a brand, whether that's personal or company, that aligns with who I am, right? With what I'm looking for. I want to be able to have that degree of relatability, and I want to feel good about doing business with this person. And so I think it's more important than ever um, for us to start to peel back the curtain a little bit and really engage with our audiences and not just focus on broadcasting what we're doing from our company and product standpoint, but really establishing that community relatability and relationship building with our audiences, because at the end of the day, that is who we want as part of our kind of circle, right? Like that's the beauty of community building, is you want people to look to you as the subject matter expert, whether that's you as a professional, again, right? Like you want people who look to you as a subject matter expert, as a voice, as someone who has a credible POV on certain topics. But also from a brand standpoint, you want your audience, when they think about a certain topic or or a certain problem that they're struggling with, you want them to immediately think about your brand. And that starts with showing up and being relatable and being human and humanizing your brand as well as your executive leadership team, making them more relatable.
Love this, because all of this builds trust. And
100%. I love
trust
it.
is
Trust.
what sells, and
Thank
trust
you.
is what sells,
100%.
right? So this is a community, you said, reliability, relationship building. These are all human skills that lead to people believing that your expertise is something that could help them solve their challenges. And I just love how you're thinking about all of this, because this is really the foundation, like you say, the foundation of the marketing nowadays.
It is.
And it probably has, it's always been, it's just, it was easier, I guess, in the past to get to the right audience because there weren't many choices, there weren't many places to go. Like nowadays, people are in so many different places that trying to find a holistic approach of how you make your brand visible in front of the right kind of person at the right time in the right place, it's absolutely key.
Absolutely. And this goes across industries, right? Like we're not just talking B2B, we're not just talking B2, like this is across every single industry, across every single profession, right? like I come from B2B tech. I recognize that. And my experience might be a little bit different than those in other industries. And I recognize that. However, just being on social and having some of this background and experience and some of these programs that quite frankly started off as experimentation for a lot of us, right? Especially for those of us in social, the employee advocacy and executive social and all of this stuff, right? Now it's built out into these are key pillars to ensuring that you have a social media function that scales, especially on a global level. Um, and so I think this translates really well across industries because every single organization, no matter what their industry is, no matter who your target audience is, you have something to say. Your executive leadership team has something to say. You, as a professional, no matter if you're a researcher, no matter if you're a marketer, no matter if you're a technologist, you have something to say. You have a unique point of view. And it's all about kind of bringing that and aligning with like minded individuals and those that are also in your field and kind of building that credibility, that community around you. And I think that the leaders that really kind of lean in and there is like that certain degree of vulnerability, right, that comes with it. The leaders that really lean in do position themselves as credible, as relevant, as trust building in their industries. And it's very important, like you said, right now, especially.
And so many people agree. Steph said, powerful insights as always. Steph Wardle. We've got Michaela Johnson saying, Elena, so true. Education and advocacy is key to creating a path for social success. And I've just realized what time it is. So I will just say, I've got one more question. And if anybody else from the audience also has a question, please feel free to put them in the chat. If someone is thinking about starting and they want to start strong, what would be your advice of what would be the first step, the first little step that they could take based on your experience to have a strong start?
Having a start as an employee advocate or as a social leader?
As an employee advocacy program, starting an employee advocacy program, what would be the first step? We've discussed many things. What would you recommend as the first step for them to take?
If you're on the employee advocate side of it versus the social team, recognize that this is not a nice to have anymore. The personal brand building aspect of it, and realize that this is a true investment in yourself. It is positioning you, it is future proofing you in a world that's increasingly unpredictable. It's creating it might create some opportunities for you as well, right? Like, just, I mean, me being here talking to you right now, right? Like, that opportunity did not exist for me just a couple of months ago. And Justina, you and I sort of got connected, and you also engaged with a couple of my posts, and that resonated with you as well. So that is such a unique opportunity for you to showcase your thought leadership, your point of view, set yourself up. And like I said, you don't have to be an influencer. I don't strive to be an influencer. I do not strive to build, a huge following or do any of that. I mean, if it's in the cards for me, I won't turn it down. However, that's not the goal of this. And so I think that it opens the doors for you to create some really meaningful relationships and connections. And that's at the core of who I am as a person. Relationships have always meant the world to me. That's the number one thing I tell colleagues, my team. I've always kind of said that, and they can echo that because they're watching. To me, relationships are number one. Org charts change, people change, organizations change, but creating really solid connections and relationships with people, those are really going to be key in how you grow as a person and as a professional. And those have always been just such a huge part of who I am. that community kind of relationship building piece to it. And it's really important for me that wherever I land in future career kind of positions, that's core to who I am, and that's what makes me happy, and that's the type of environment that I thrive in. So I'd say it's increasingly important for you to find your voice, find your tribe, no pun intended.
Love it. Love it.
That
And
was
keep making
totally random,
impact.
by the way. I did not practice this at all. I'm telling you right now, that totally came out natural. I have jokes. It's mom jokes most of the time, but nevertheless.
It's okay. And keep making impact.
Yeah. And making
Find your
it
tribe, keep making impact. Love this. Love this. Love this. Elena, thank you so much. We haven't covered even half of the questions. There's just been so much that we connected also on the subjects. Someone mentioned Carla. Yes, if you are not online, you don't exist. Absolutely right, especially now where we are at the mercy of algorithms, right?
yes.
We need to figure out the ways of how to be visible. And just we've got Justine saying, I've been making copious notes here, but the word I keep underlining in caps is authenticity. Would you agree? And there are so many other fascinating insights here. Thank you so much. Thank you, the audience, for joining us. Thank you, Elena, for agreeing to this conversation. I would love to follow up with you at some point because I think there's so much more we could share in here. I think you bring such a unique perspective into how to do this holistically, how to start strongly, how to connect it to other initiatives. I really appreciate that. There's been some unique insights here that I'm sure a lot of our audience will take away and put into action.
Thank you, Justina. Thank you for the support. Thank you for the time, the platform, and just the connection as well. And I'm looking forward to obviously reconnecting with you. Looking forward to connecting with anyone that's in the audience that wants to reach out. Happy to connect offline and chat one-on-one anytime. So thank you again.
Brilliant. Thank you. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining us.